Hey, Miss CD. Hey, Sharon. Hey, Carla. Miss CD, were you saying that you were getting involved, or not involved, but were you interested in hearing more about the case of the missing 5-year-old? Hey, Claire. Hey, Bella. I was just listening to part of, hi, DG. I was just listening to part of the channel that is interviewing the father of the missing 5-year-old over and over again. And he's talking and talking and talking. And so are a lot of other people too. First off, I want to say this. There's a really good channel that I have never seen before. It's called The Lab, LAB. Oh, good. Miss CD is obsessed with the case of the missing 5-year-old girl, so she's going to love this. So, if you haven't seen the channel yet that's called The Lab, check it out. That channel creator is so interesting. He's actually interesting. It's very informative. He's well spoken. It's a great channel. So I highly recommend it. But there's another channel where they are interviewing the father of the missing child. And in the comment threads, I noticed, well, I'll find it and read it. Let's see here. So I get it right. In the comment threads, somebody said, the problem is they judged the parents initially, and by doing so, they discriminated against Summer. LE should treat every missing child as an abduction from the beginning until they get evidence against it. She should not have to pay for their past sins or even how they are living. She is 5 years old. She didn't know any different, yet she was treated that way. I absolutely disagree with that comment all the way, and I'll tell you why. Do you know how few incidents there are of a child being abducted? Aren't there something like 450,000 missing children every year in the United States alone? And how many of those children are abducted? 200. Some reports say fewer than 100. Out of 450,000? And to think that law enforcement wouldn't look at the conditions that that little girl was living in, or to think that law enforcement wouldn't care about her parents' records and behavior. Have you guys watched the video? I think it was on that channel. Or no, it was on the other one. I don't know his name. Is it Chris? I think is his name. The retired detective, I think. He interviewed the stepsister to the missing girl's father, right? If you listen to that interview and then you want to tell me that parents' past behavior doesn't matter, what? There you go, Nina. Does anybody agree with me that any parent of any missing child should not be on YouTube? Does anybody really believe they're doing the guy any favors? Do you think law enforcement is going to act on the stepsister's claims? Happy Dog wants to know, why is this so fascinating to you? Why is what so fascinating to us? Carla makes a good point. I don't understand, if your child is missing, that you would have the will or energy to give interviews. Sorry, that's a red flag for me. Miss CD says, because I want those parents arrested. Justice for this child. I think somebody posted a smack comment and didn't realize that they should have paid attention to the chat before they posted the smack comment. Because I don't see a reply to my question. Come on, Happy Dog. Tell us, what is it that you're referring to when you say, why is this so fascinating to you folks? Have you guys seen AD's book on Amazon yet? It's called The Shadow Man. And the bad reviews are piling up. Let me see if I can find them. I had them open here. I will try to find them. You guys know AD is not one of my favorite people. However, I think posting comments on books on Amazon for the sole purpose of being malicious, it appears, is not okay. It just isn't okay. Here it is. I finally found it. Kindle edition, $8.99, available instantly. There are 15 ratings. Then this book just went up, okay? And there are 15 ratings. And I'm scrolling through to see if anybody who is rating the book has ever read the book. You know how they say that they confirm that they purchased? I think they call it a verified purchase. Let's see if there are any verified buyers here. Elaine, nope. True Crime Rose, reviewed, nope. Nurse something, nope. Catherine, nope. Absolute, oh wait, the Real Scoop says it's an absolute fraud. But evidently they haven't read it yet. Kylie, nope. Common Sense, nope. Melissa, Nope. And Ian something. Nope. So in all these reviews that I'm looking at, it doesn't look like he has read the book yet. Let's take a look at the 1 stars here. The first one says horrible and gives it a 1-star rating. Keep in mind they haven't bought the book. And then they put his name right in there, right? His full name is not the finder of the shadows. Diane Hughes found them and he is taking credit. The nurse something or other says under a 1-star review, I am very surprised that Amazon supports authors who have illegal sexual searches on their computers for all to see and use plagiarized work. I want to tell you something. If you weren't around 3 years ago when the scumbag attackers started attacking, the second video that was made attacking my family and me, the scumbag attacker said in her video that I was plagiarizing my work. No kidding. I write opinion essays on true crime cases. How do you plagiarize your work? The word plagiarize shows up over and over again in these reviews. And you know what? My theory is they have just 2 or 3 writers and probably about 38 actual scumbag attackers who are actively recruited or hired to post all this stuff. I'm thinking that one of their writers likes the word plagiarize. Here's one, a 1-star, no verified purchase, that says absolute fraud. This book, Shadow Man, is based on a premise that a small-time con man from YouTube discovered shadow blah, 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 blah. It's a very long paragraph. You know, I'm all for people having different opinions and speaking their mind, right? But I think that for any of these reviews to be credible, I think they should read the book first. Don't you? Sharon, we use initials. The people going after AD are just as bad or worse than AD. Personally, I think a lot of them are working together. Some of them are working, in my opinion, with AD. Did Mr. Fascinating or Miss Fascinating ever answer? Nope. I think they posted that smack comment before they realized what the chat was about. I'm not sure. Sharon, can you delete that and use initials? Yes, Susie. Next, he'll be in a movie. You just know it, right? You know it. Wait for it. Wait for it. I don't care for him at all. That's why I don't watch his stuff. And it is that simple, you know. So back to this missing child, the 5-year-old. Have you guys seen the interview of the stepsister? She's claiming that when she was 5 years old, that she was sexually abused repeatedly for years. The channel that is spending a lot of time talking with one of the parents of the missing child has repeatedly minimized the stepsister's claims. Repeatedly. They say things like, oh, well, that was 37 years ago. Well, you know what? Maybe they should say that to the survivor. It was 37 years ago. Let it go, right? Aren't we all in the true crime community, in the true crime community, aren't we all aware of the fact that even sexual abusers, the predators, right, the sex offenders, even they admit that it isn't something that gets cured. And I think it's really interesting when that channel is talking about how there are so many sex offenders, registered sex offenders, who are living in the neighborhood where the little girl went missing. What? There's a double standard. Oh my goodness, there's so many sex offenders living in the neighborhood. But if the stepsister gives an interview claiming that she was a victim of one of the parents when she was growing up, who would have been her older stepbrother, oh, that was 37 years ago. Do you see the contradiction? I imagine all those sex offenders in the neighborhood that they're so shocked by that at least a few of them could say, oh, that was 37 years ago, right? Truth Bomb says, as an adult, did DW's stepsister call the police when she said he essayed her daughter? I didn't hear about the essayed her daughter part. I only heard part of that video, and that was when the mother was talking. I did hear her talk about how one of her friends, that she had a sleepover and one of her friends was essayed also. Yes, Miss CD, she's been arrested for animal abuse. I don't know about you guys. Have you noticed the temper of the mister? He has a short fuse, it looks like. I don't watch that much of what they're saying, but there have been 3 or 4 times where he's like, oh, I'm getting so sick of this. And then I see her just kind of almost cowering. That I think, wow, short fuse, buddy. Susie said, did she not say it was her sister? I think it was her friend, but I don't know. I didn't watch the whole thing. Oh. Susie, you're talking about the animal abuse? Yeah, she did say that it wasn't her, that it was her sister. So, of course, law enforcement arrested her for it. Well, personally, if the woman who was interviewed on the channel, I think it was The Lab, if what she's saying is true, then I do think that she should go right to law enforcement. And in fact, from what she said in her interview, on the day after or the second day after the little 5-year-old disappeared, she did contact law enforcement to tell them what she wanted to tell them about what happened to her. This is part of a bigger question, too. All of these arrest records, right? All of these, and I'm not talking about the parents right now, I'm talking about the YouTube cesspool. all of the arrest records, all the abusers, all of the poo-pooing of serious crimes, serious criminal histories. How can you watch any channel when you know that the person has a criminal history? Doesn't that matter? Miss CD says that she is going to press charges on the SA. Interesting. Listening to her voice, listening to her tell her story, she sounds very credible. Truth Bomb says, since DW is accused of doing SA as a minor, isn't it very possible he was also SA'd as a young child repeating behavior? I don't think it was only as a minor, was it? I think the stepsister said that he went away to prison. And when he got back from prison, he was doing it again. I am definitely not one to want to protect any abuser, whether it's a child abuser, whether it's a wife abuser, a husband abuser, any abuser at all, an animal abuser. But I think it's interesting that people are saying they care about him and they believe in him and they want to give him a voice. Well, if they actually care about him and not just about trying to make money off their channel, if they actually care about him, then wouldn't it make sense that they wouldn't have him up there singing like a canary? Bella says DW was at work and that was proven. Ironclad. Bella says he is a POS, but there's no way he could have been there that afternoon. Miss CD says, Bella, the title 40 Minutes is the clue to what DW may have been doing. I thought it was interesting that he said his wife called him on her cell phone, and when he told her to dial 911, that she ran to her mother's trailer to call 911. At the end of the day, I trust that law enforcement is going to be investigating and is investigating the case thoroughly, and that the truth will come out. But as far as the YouTube stuff, I really think true crimers, if they're going to call themselves true crimers, need to raise their standards big time. I think it's interesting, too, that they're saying that he was going to the police department to get a copy of the report. Do they understand how this stuff works? It's an open investigation. Truth Bomb says the ex-cop something something is trying to convict DW in the court of public opinion, and that is not helping find Summer. Well, personally, I don't think anybody should be doing any videos on an open case, which is why we're not going last names here or saying any state or anything like that. I just found that comment in the comment thread to be really interesting, as if law enforcement was wrong to be investigating anything other than the possibility of an abduction. When in fact, again, the numbers are pretty telling. Over 450,000 per year in the United States alone, children go missing. And I have found conflicting numbers here. It's either less than 100 are actual abductions, or I think it was 205 are actual abductions per year out of over 450,000. So it kind of makes sense to me that they would be examining all possibilities, right? $450,000, Susie, is a lot, but 100 or fewer than 100 isn't. So it makes total sense that if 449,900 children are not abducted, then law enforcement would be investigating all possibilities. Do you know what a police well, maybe not anymore, but back in the day when I was a police dispatcher, you know what the first question was that I would ask when a frantic parent would call and say that their child has either been abducted or their child is missing? I would ask, have you checked under their bed? That usually helped to calm them down a little bit too, because it gave them some action to do, right? So I'd hang on the phone with them while they'd check under the bed and they'd check the closet. Do you know how many times kids are sleeping in the closet and the parents are dialing 911? I kid you not. In the years that I was a police dispatcher, there was one case, one, where a child was abducted. One. And the child was abducted by a parent. Yet we're led to believe that it's happening all the time, right? Tamara's kids are adults now. Do you remember Tamara back in the 80s and 90s? I think mostly in the 80s, where it suddenly became the most fearful thing of all. Like we were all supposed to be living in total fear and wrap our children in bubble wrap, put them on leashes, because kids were getting abducted evidently all the time, all over the place. That was in the 80s. And when I became a police dispatcher, and I realized, wow, a whole year's gone by and there hasn't been any child abducted. And then another year went by and there wasn't a case at all of a child being abducted. And another year, I think it was in my 4th or 5th year, that the child was abducted by the child's parent. And during that time frame, they were actually encouraging parents to take their children to their local fire station to get their fingerprints taken and to have a kit ready in case their child was abducted, that they would have the current photo and fingerprints and, a full description. Parents were being conditioned to live in fear. I'm not saying that abductions have not taken place. I'm simply saying that I think we're wise to step back from the fear mongering. And again, referencing that comment that was made, as if law enforcement is missing the ball by supposedly, I guess the person commenting believes that Ellie isn't looking at the possibility of an abduction, which I highly doubt that's even the case. The likelihood that the child was abducted is probably pretty much, well, the likelihood would be 100 out of 450,000. Let's take away a couple of zeros here. That would be 1 out of 4,500. So let's see. I'm kind of tired. I had a really long day yesterday. Let's see here. I'm not sure if I'll get this right, but I'll give it a try. Well, whatever the number is. The chances are, I'll say it this way, slim to none. Yes, Tamara, I remember being in the downtown area, right in the middle of the city with one of my siblings. And I had to have been like 6 years old. I remember hopping on my bicycle and heading to the library anytime I wanted. This was back in the day when our curfew, not any official curfew, but where most kids on the planet knew that when the street lights went on, that it was time to go home. I don't know, maybe I'm just not very forgiving. But when I listen to that, I shouldn't say that. I'm very forgiving. But I think some things are just unforgivable. When I listened to that Stepsister's video on that channel, the lab, or no, not on the lab. I keep saying that. She was interviewed by that Chris guy. When I listened to her telling her story, well, like I said, some things are just not forgivable, in my opinion. And you know the motto on this channel, right? There's a special place in hell for abusers. Just my opinion. I think there's a special place in hell for people who make excuses for abusers, too. Just my opinion. Did you guys catch the live with Meg and Jay? Miss CD is pointing out the cycle of abuse. And I will say this, that I think that the cycle rhetoric has changed in the last generation or two, thanks to the activists in the 70s and 80s who were very good at teaching society about the importance of breaking the cycle. They say that children are very resilient and they can, I don't want to say bounce back, but they are very resilient beings. And one of the most important factors to their resilience is what the reaction was when they told what was happening to them. If they had a parent who just poo-pooed their fears and concerns and their claims, then I think SA and child abuse, any abuse, is cyclical. But when they have a parent who says, "What?" and who takes action, and the child is treated as if their words are credible and believed, that child will not go on to continue the cycle. Miss CD says that she's been watching the missing woman in Colorado case too. Hey, Kay Cooper. Yes, Spacebound, that is the difference between whether or not it will become a generational curse, right? And I found that interesting about the Stepsisters video because it doesn't sound like she called law enforcement before the 5-year-old went missing. Tamara, you might want to delete that comment because the scumbag attackers love running with stuff like that. So you might want to delete that. This is one of the things about the case of Christopher Watts that's so irritating. Instead of helping society learn or gain awareness about any of these issues that we've been discussing, the blinders are on and let's just pretend it away, right? That's how abuse continues, is with a society that just wants to put the blinders on and pretend it away. I don't know if you can delete just one like that, but if you can, I don't know how to delete it, or I would for you. But that's just one thing you might not want to, you know. You guys are free to if you want. I'm just saying, be careful. Because the whole scumbag attacker thing is real and it's happening. Back to the Megan J thing. Did you guys watch the Megan J live when she hopped up on the panel night before last? I've been thinking about some of the stuff she was saying, and I'm like, you know what? She says a lot of smart stuff. And she's doing a live about that 2012 thing that she mentioned. I think it's coming up either today or tomorrow. I'm going to check it out because I think it's very interesting. I think it's interesting that so much of the case of Christopher Watts is handled by countries other than the United States. So much of the support, right, for new laws in the United States are, well, it's coming from people who don't even live in the United States. What do they care about our laws, right? Even the producer for that docudrama wasn't even from the United States. Surely Netflix has producers in the United States who would have been interested in it, right? So why was it the UK producer? Well, that's why I plan on watching that Megan J live chat about that 2012 thing, because those puzzle pieces just might fit. So the question of this live chat is, do you think we'll ever know the truth about what happened to poor little Bella and Cece Watts? I think there are a lot of people who do know the truth. Whether they see Christopher Watts ever get any post-conviction relief or not, I think there are a lot of people who pretty much figure they know what happened. I agree, Kay Cooper. I've never seen a true crime case handled this way, ever. Sharon says, no, I don't think we will. Susie says, they know the truth, all right. I think it's interesting that we're told that we'll never know the truth because they don't tell people like us. Because what they're really saying, by saying that, what they're really saying is, haha, suckers, we're lying to you. She does make a lot of sense. But again, like I said a few times in that live chat, if there is anything at all that, like, say the stuff that's been happening since the tragedy, I don't want to speak for her, but I think her opinion is that nothing happened, right? I think the tragedy happened, but then I think the control went into effect immediately. So I'm ready to get on board with her about all of the weird stuff since the tragedy. But after talking directly with Cindy Watts, I just can't imagine that they would allow Cindy to be suffering so much if it wasn't true. And I just can't imagine anybody would be such a great actress to be able to fake the way she acted. Smile and Make You Happy videos says, Mr. F. Ruse said we will never know. Now another GoFundMe set up. Have you seen it? I checked on GoFundMe because I got emails yesterday and I was traveling yesterday. So it was kind of fun on my phone to try to figure out how to do all that. And I couldn't find it. So when I got home, I checked. Let me see if I still have that little thing open. I might. Let's see here. That's not it. Okay, here it is. It's not GoFundMe. It's actually one that I think is in the, let's see, where's this one based? And again, that kind of makes you wonder. Google. Let's see where it's based out of. That'll be interesting to see because of that 2012 thing. It says copyright 2021. Here we go. About. Let's see. It looks like it's based in London. This would be information for Megan J. I think she would find it very interesting that it's based in London, which would fit with her 2012 narrative. I was looking through it when I found it to see, okay, what's the gist of it? Let's see. It says, following the murder of my sister and her children in 2018, my family and I have been attacked on social media by online trolls from all over the world. These online trolls are sending us floods of threatening, bullying, and abusive messages, many of which, in a sick way, blame my sister for her own murder and suggest my family and I have taken bribes to conceal parts of the murder investigation in an attempt to free the actual culprits. Wait a minute. I didn't know that they've received. Let me see. It says these online trolls are sending us floods of threatening, bullying, and abusive messages. Are the online trolls? Okay, let's start at the beginning. What is a troll? And I know that sounds like a stupid question, but what is a troll? Is a troll someone like a scumbag attacker who just hangs out online to try to harass people? So at that 1 year anniversary, they said that they were getting screenshots and stuff sent to them by people showing them what they were finding online. So it doesn't sound like the trolls are sending them anything at the 1 year anniversary. And now this petition or whatever it's called. Wait, where is it? I have too many windows open. Let's see here. Not that one. Here it is. Okay. Now this petition is saying that, let's see, hold on, where was it? Quote, these online trolls are sending us floods of threatening, bullying, and abusive messages. So it sounds like they're saying that people are actually contacting them directly and, quote, threatening, bullying, and abusing. Okay. I haven't seen anything on this. Have you guys? Because the last I heard, they had people sending them screenshots of opinions on the case that they didn't like. So I don't know. Let's see here. I'm still looking for the reason for the funding. Let's go here. Okay, in 2020, a Netflix documentary was produced. They worked alongside her and stood in full support of the documentary. It says, because it gave my family and I a platform to voice the truth, silence the online trolls, raise awareness for domestic violence, and highlight the sheer evilness committed by Watts. I didn't know the Netflix docudrama was created in order to silence the online trolls. It says, despite this, one of the main instigators of this harassment campaign, do you guys think there's a harassment campaign? I don't know anybody who's harassed them, but, they haven't shown us, as far as I know. If you guys have a link to any video about any evidence of any harassment, that would be interesting to see. So let's see here. It says, these online trolls have gone to such lengths to dishonor my sister and my family by fabricating slanderous, callous, and outright false claims about us. Well, I've never fabricated any slanderous, callous, or outright false claims about any of them. I wonder if they're saying that AD did. Let's see here. Oh, it does look like it's directed toward AD because it says this internet user has amassed a fan base of so far. Oops, my screen just went. There it goes. So far, 66.6 thousand subscribers. Interesting. That would be something that Megan J would be interested in noticing, right? Because she always likes that number when it shows up in these cases. So the petition says that AD has amassed, well, it says this internet user has amassed a fan base of so far 66.6 thousand subscribers who, like him, have also developed an unhealthy obsession with the murder of his sister and her children. What? An unhealthy obsession? I think AD is, I mean, again, I don't even like the guy. I'm not at all about, yay AD at all. He's not one of my favorite people. But I don't think he has an unhealthy obsession with any case. I think what he has is a YouTube channel that he's using to talk about true crime cases. Let's see here. And it says, and inundated his family with threatening and abusive messages online. What? Inundated the family with threatening and abusive messages online. I've never seen any threatening or abusive messages online against any one of them. So if you guys have, definitely send me a link or post a link in the comment threads if you can, or email it to me and I'll post it. Let's see. The online trolls and internet user responsible for the cruel campaign of harassment. I don't think he has a campaign of harassment at all. I think he had a campaign of he wants to make money off of his true crime channel. Let's see. Cruel campaign of harassment and defamation against us? Has he committed defamation? I don't know. Has he? If he has, I haven't seen it yet. It says that he has full knowledge that we do not have the means to put a stop to this? Huh? We are simple people with limited means who have never left the U.S., let alone traveled to the UK. Let's see. Here it is. I want to get to the gist of it to see what the petition is for, or not petition, but what the fundraiser is for. Okay. Quote, we are planning to commence a case of harassment and defamation in the High Court against a number of the positively identified online trolls. Huh. Okay, and it says they have limited means. Let's see. And then here it goes. All we want is for, and then he lists off his family members, their legacy to be respected. Okay, there's the gist of the fundraiser, it looks like. It says, quote, all we want is for their legacy to be respected. Wait a minute. All we want is for their legacy to be respected. So it sounds like that. I don't know. You guys, have you read it yourself? Do you think that's the gist of it? Quote, all we want is for their legacy to be respected. So does that mean that we're not able to have the opinion that Christopher Watts may have been telling the truth when he said that he did not murder his children, Bella and Cece Watts? Is that what that means? Does that mean that they're going to try to legislate respect? I don't know. I'm just asking. Because I don't think that's how respect works, right? Let's see here. It says, I'm hoping to raise 25 pounds with a stretch target of 45. I said 25,000 pounds with a stretch target of 45,000 pounds to fund the legal costs in bringing a case of defamation and harassment against the online trolls. What? Defamation and harassment against who? And again, if you guys have seen any evidence of harassment, definitely send me the link because I haven't seen it yet. I'm not saying it isn't there, but I haven't seen it yet. And I don't quite know the use of the term defamation in that context. It continues, I have already committed nearly 5,000 pounds to this case, which was part of what I raised through my GoFundMe page. I have collected a further 5,000 pounds, which will also go towards my solicitor's fees. However, the funds I have raised to date will not cover the entire legal expense of my case, which is why my family and I need your help. So it's okay, they're talking about how much work there's going to be to prepare for the case or to prepare the case. It says this includes the preservation and evaluation of thousands of posts, documents, and videos, something of which my solicitors, along with other good-natured people in the UK, have already begun committing their time to. So they're going to be evaluating videos and comments and posts and then forming their opinion on whether or not they believe those videos and comments and posts should be able to be posted. It says, why this case is important. Online trolls prey on the vulnerability of innocent people. Well, amen to that, sister. Let me tell you something. The people who have been attacking me for 3 years straight, who are connected to the case of Christopher Watts, they actually targeted me before I had even heard of this case. And you know what? They discussed it with each other that they thought I'd be an easy target because I'm old and I don't know much about computers. And just a few months after they started attacking me and harassing my family and harassing my employer, calling my house, threatening my life, just a few months after that, they were saying to each other, gee, I'm surprised she hasn't committed suicide yet. So that sentence, I agree. I'll say it again. Online trolls prey on the vulnerability of innocent people. Ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth? Those of us who have been getting attacked, the scumbag attackers evidently thought that we'd be easy to, and I'll use their word, the scumbag attackers like to use this word, they thought it would be easy to destroy our lives. It says, we, a grieving family, have fallen victim to this cruel and vicious online hate. Oh, I could have written this paragraph. I'll tell you. Right from the start, for 3 years straight, I have fallen victim to this cruel and vicious online hate. Because, the sentence continues, because these trolls have considered us to be a weak and vulnerable, easy target. Exactly, just like I was saying. The scumbag attackers who were organized to attack people who were discussing the case of Christopher Watts, they targeted people they viewed as being, quote, weak and vulnerable. I don't know, maybe I should be a co-plaintiff on this case. Oh, wait. I wouldn't be going to London. I would be filing my case in the United States. It says it is unacceptable that these online trolls should be allowed to hide behind the mask that is the internet and bully vulnerable families such as mine without any real consequences. I agree with that completely. It is unacceptable. Again, I could have written this sentence myself after everything I've suffered through in the last 3 years. It is unacceptable that these online trolls should be allowed to hide behind the mask that is the internet and bully vulnerable families such as mine. And I'm reading that as if I wrote it. Online trolls must begin to understand that this is not acceptable and will in no way be tolerated. Exactly. I agree completely. The crap that has been pulled to harm my family and me, disgusting. And then it says, especially when the abuse is being directed toward deceased members of my family. I feel the same way. When those scumbag attackers were attacking my deceased mother, I was shocked. Anyone can fall victim to online trolls and abuse, and so we must stand together in order to put these kinds of ordeals to an end. Well, I agree. I think that when there are people posting hateful, abusive, threatening videos on social media, I think the people who post those videos should be held accountable for their actions. And I think that people who comment in those comment threads under those hateful, harassing, violent, promoting, threatening videos, I think the people in the comment threads who are sitting there applauding them should get in trouble too. Just my opinion. There you are. I had to click a couple times to find you. Smile and make you happy videos says, Miss Mensa, I am genuinely shocked hearing this happen. I never knew. And was this just because of the Watts case? Evidently. But the interesting little fact is that I was being attacked before I had even heard of the Watts case. So evidently, whoever's in charge of the organized attacks against innocent people were running around selecting who they deemed to be easy targets. Extinct Tube says, people, the truthers say it's so great and she has a right to have the channel and so on. But I retort that the channel would have grown very slowly had it not been for their murdered family members. I don't know what you're talking about. Are you talking about the cooking channel? I don't watch the cooking channel, but I've seen just a couple clips of a couple of the videos. And I think that it pretty much looks like she's providing some helpful cooking lessons for people who want to feed a family on a low budget. And I think that's great. I think, hallelujah, have a cooking channel, I think that's great. Just kind of like how I feel about Alice Cooper. I think she should have a dollar store tour channel or make candles or something. Samara says, the sad thing, women will donate again. Well, I'm going to watch the Megan J upcoming live chat because she's talking about that thing from 2012. I think there's an interesting connection here. We're always trying to put the puzzle pieces together, right? Well, I think this might be one of the puzzle pieces, quite frankly. Over the last few years, we've heard a lot about how we need a new law, right? We need a new law. But I found it interesting that the people who were most vocal about the United States needing a new law didn't even live in the United States. And they evidently didn't know how laws are made because they were evidently believing that it took money to get a law made. You see what I'm saying? Oh, I agree, Extinct Tube. I agree. But I do think it's a great place for people who maybe want to learn how to, I don't know, maybe if someone can find it helpful, that's a good thing. But I'm with you. If I want to watch a cooking channel, I'm watching something else. But my kids are raised, so, it's a whole different thing with cooking. Like, I'm old, so I know how to cook. And I'm not trying to feed a big family on a budget or whatever. Well, you guys, I think one thing you want to think about are the numbers. I don't have Megan J's email. I don't even know if she gives her email out. But if any of you land in that Megan J live chat before I do, or if I land there and I forget to tell her, will you guys tell her how in that new fundraiser, it says that AD or whoever the target of the fundraiser is, that they have 66.6 thousand members or subscribers? Because Megan J was talking about that the other night, how there's a lot of symbolic whatever. So somebody, if I forget to tell her, or even if I don't forget to tell her, but I just haven't told her yet or whatever, will somebody be sure to tell Megan J about that? Because I know she was talking about it the other night. This is how I see it. I have been targeted and attacked and harassed, and I have seen with my own eyes that family member posting lies about my family and me and applauding videos, applauding channel creators who were threatening me and who were doxing me and who were telling people to harass my employer, who were telling people to harass the Mensa organization. He has lied about me. In fact, he has lied about me repeatedly. So I think it's kind of ironic, just my opinion. I think it's kind of ironic that he's saying he's being harassed because I've never seen anybody harassing him. Samara says, I bet Alice is behind this. Well, Smile and Make You Happy videos, they target regardless. I wasn't even on YouTube. I didn't even know about this stupid case, and they were targeting. So they target regardless. They need their scapegoats. Elena, it was not just because I wasn't on anybody's side. No, they were attacking me before I had even heard of this stupid case. They want you to think that they don't like me because they don't like my opinion. No, They were targeting me before I had even heard of this case. I have been writing true crime books for many years. I have many true crime case discussion groups on Facebook. They chose me as one of their targets. I'm also old, and I admittedly don't know diddle about computers. They targeted me. What they didn't expect when they targeted me was that I would respond by creating a YouTube channel and talking about it. Allie, I think that's an interesting point. And I think it's interesting that other channel creators talk a lot about the issue of free speech. But I especially think it's interesting that when we do have the right to speak and the right to discuss true crime cases that are on what's known as the public stage, that anybody would be trying to claim that having, the quote, wrong opinion that any of this would make any sense, right? Exactly. Smile and make you happy videos. You're exactly right. And it's interesting because one of the people, there's really in 12 years or more, even more than 12 years now, there have been just 3 people who are weird. And 2 of the 3, I think, were the same person using 2 profiles. Okay, 3 people in, it's actually been like 13 and a half years. I have a full library on the case of Darlie Routier. People like getting into my group because when I write my little books on Darlie Routier, I give them away for free to my 1,000 subscribers, okay, or members or whatever. If you have a question about the Darlie Routier case, the chances are pretty good that I know the answer, okay? And it's not because I'm so brilliant or anything. I'm not trying to say that. But I'm pretty much the go-to for the Darlie Routier case, and people know it. So no doubt that was part of how the scumbag attackers singled me out as part of their hate campaign. They needed a scapegoat. They wanted to find people who they could try to frighten and terrorize and traumatize. And remember, I bet you they never expected me to create a YouTube channel and to talk about it. I bet you they thought that they were just so brilliant that they would be, forcing me into a corner, cowering with fear, right? I bet you they figured, she's just an old woman. She doesn't know shit about computers. She'll be easy. Those are their words. Those are their own words. So when I started a YouTube channel and I started talking about what they were doing, they were probably like, oh shit, she's talking. And when other people began to notice what they were doing and connecting the dots for themselves and seeing what they were up to, they were probably thinking, oh shit, she's still talking. Carla, I hate to break it to you. I'm always truthful. So I hope you're sitting down when I tell you this, so you don't tip over in shock. But honey, we're old. We're smart. We're pretty. We're good people. We've got a lot to be proud of. And you can't tell. You can't tell because we don't have all the gray hair, right? But we're old. Oh, good. She took it well. Or maybe she's just kind of in denial. I'm not sure. Yes, we are old and we are wise. And we're wise enough to know it. That's even wiser yet. I just think it's interesting, though. And I wonder, I wish AD would tell the truth about his involvement with all of it. Because I really wonder how much of a role he plays in all of it. If you think about it, are we supposed to watch that other lawsuit and see that supposedly a channel creator is being sued for millions of dollars? And then are we supposed to be afraid to talk? Are we supposed to read this new fundraiser description? Are we supposed to think, oh no, oh my goodness, AD, it sounds like it's AD and he's getting sued. Oh no. Are we supposed to be afraid to discuss the case of Christopher Watts? Well, I'm here to tell you, I've taken 3 years of this crap. 3 years of being basically told that I'm supposed to be afraid. Too afraid to discuss the case of Christopher Watts. I've been told by some of the scumbag attackers themselves that I'm free to talk about any case I want to talk about, but I'm not allowed, key word, allowed to discuss the case of Christopher Watts. Really? So who decides which true crime cases we're allowed to discuss? And if you want to try to convince people to not discuss a true crime case, then maybe there shouldn't be so many inconsistencies showing right from the start on the case. All right, Miss Badskirt's at the beach, soaking up some vitamin D. I think we should all go to the beach. Actually, we should. The weather's perfect for it. The fudgies probably aren't flooding the beaches on a Tuesday. You guys are going to laugh at this. I actually had other plans for today. And this morning I thought, oh man, I am so tired because I got in late last night. And today was going to be another super full day, and I have a full day tomorrow. And this morning I'm like, should I, shouldn't I? And so I moved stuff around a little bit. And part of my decision was I thought to myself, well, if I move this around a little bit, then I can do a live chat today. That's pretty bad when you guys are part of my decision making for my to-do list for the day. Susie has a heave wave. Where I'm from, we have heat waves. But right now in Scotland, there's a heave wave. I'll bet you I know why. If they're having a heave wave in Scotland, it's probably because they know about the Spare showing up with his camera crew. I love your spell checker, Susie. And I love giving you a hard time about it every time. 105 degrees? Oh my goodness. That's too hot. Hey, Kate Cooper, did you go in for that job? Well, actually, I don't even think you go in. I think you hop online. Jammer says it's hot in Indiana. Smile and make you happy video says, I am very pleased because this is a really good chat. All of our chats are. Smile. And if you don't believe me, just ask Susie. Susie's our go-to for the truth. Good. Well, get her done, girl. Get her done. And remember the state. Ms. Bad Skirt has a lovely breeze off of the ocean. Susie's still laughing. I wonder if she's had her. Have you started drinking yet, Susie? Because you're later than we are, right? Not only is Susie our go-to girl for the truth, because she knows all the facts. And if you wonder about anybody, whether or not to trust them, Susie has the answer. Because she can say something in January, and come June, sure enough, she was right. But she's also a drinker. She doesn't think she is, though, because she's from Scotland, and in Scotland, evidently, everybody's a drinker. So she thinks it's normal. Oh, don't say the S word, Kay Cooper. Ooh. Not on a school night? Okay, Susie, good. So this is our sober Susie today. Look at the two children. That says a lot. I'll tell you, one of these nights, just for the fun of it, Susie, I think Miss Mensa will pour a glass of wine. I only have wine a couple times a year, but I think we should do a live chat. You know, you've got me snoring already, right? I think we should do a live chat of Miss Mensa drinking a glass of wine with y'all, because about halfway through it, I'll be going, I can feel it. My lips feel puffy. I don't know, though. You know, if you drink, don't you know that would be the time where, like, you would have to do something in a hurry, right? That would be my luck. Wouldn't that be fun, Susie? I think that'd be kind of fun. We'd have to have somebody else who has like admin controls, though, so that way if I started giggling too much or talking too much, you know, it would be fun. It'd be kind of fun for me to listen to it later to go, oh my gosh, that's what I sound like. Because I know the very first thing I do, I know, because I know me, because I've known me for 61 years. The first thing I do is I start feeling like my lips are getting puffy. And then I think, oh my gosh, am I drunk? Do you guys know I drove drunk one time? By accident. And I wasn't drunk. I don't think it was drunk. I actually had maybe a couple of glasses and maybe even, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 glasses actually. And this is back when I had my Rio Red Cobra convertible. Not only did I drive after having 1 or 2 or maybe 3 glasses of wine, but I actually had one of my children with me. And when my friends left, I said, hey, we need M&Ms. You want to come with me? To which my child said, yeah. And so we hopped in the Rio Red Cobra convertible and we put the top down and we went on a mission to get M&Ms because suddenly M&Ms mattered to me. So we're driving to get the M&Ms and I'm having fun. Driving the Rio Red Cobra convertible was always fun. And we ran in and got the M&Ms and we ran back out. And as I was getting back into the car, I thought to myself, wait a minute. I probably shouldn't be driving. That's probably the word. Yeah, I don't think I was drunk. I think that's probably the word for it. I mean, I didn't hear any buzzing or anything, but I was very comfortable. And my lips were puffy. I mean, they felt puffy. So I realized that it probably was a stupid idea for me because I am such an easy drunk, right? I don't mean that I'm easy when I'm drunk. I mean, I'm easily drunk. It was probably stupid of me to be driving the Rio Red Cobra convertible because keywords Rio Red, right? So I wasn't afraid of hurting anyone or of getting in any accident or anything because I wasn't drunk. But I also know from my dispatching years that people who are drunk insist that they're not drunk, right? And you know how I analyze everything to the nth degree. By the time I even started the car, I was probably going, okay, what back road should I take? I'll go really slow, right? And here I am decades later telling you about it. I was really happy to pull back into that driveway with those M&Ms, let me tell you. Safe and sound. Sharon says she doesn't like being around people who have been drinking. I don't either. Drunks can be funny, like if you're out dancing and there's a big group of people and you're having fun, then drunks can be kind of funny sometimes. But when you're not a drinker, like the whole drunk thing gets really boring to watch very quickly. A little bit of it can be funny, but after a while, it's like, especially if they start telling you serious things. Then it's like, oh, brother, they're drunk. Here they go. But if they're fun when they're drunk, then they can be fun, especially if they're, having fun dancing and stuff, then it's different. Or at a concert too. Concerts are fun if people are having a little bit of juju. I don't know what that means, Bella. Raw Edge says, "What is Megan J's channel?" It's called something. Hold on. Think for yourself. That's what it's called. Think for yourself. Yeah, just a little bit of it's fun. I thought that live chat the other night was pretty interesting. And I liked her guts to hop up on the panel because I was kind of bashing her in the chat, right? A little bit, not like bashing her personally, but I was saying why I was pretty much wondering how connected she was and stuff. And she hopped right up on the panel and she addressed all of it. Boom, boom, boom. I don't know. I respect that. That sounds good, Smile. And I do plan on getting some more videos up. I've uploaded 7 videos to my Patreon tiers, TIERS. And I have a few more in the hopper ready to roll. I'm going to do a long one on the whole stop abusing Cindy Watts routine. I'm going to do a really long one on that, and then I'm just going to let that issue go for a while. But I put one up the other day for the Peterson cases. I put one up for the Darlie case. I put one up for the Betty Broderick case. Let me think. I put one up on the killer wife from France, from Paris, France. That was an interesting one. I put up some other ones too. The Routier one is, I think, I can't remember if it's $3 a month or $5 a month. I think it's $3, but it might be 5. I don't know. I think it's 3. Smile says, have you ever looked into Betty Broderick? I have a Betty Broderick tier also. And yes, I've written a book on Betty Broderick called Permission to Scream. And I have a Betty Broderick discussion group on Facebook too. You guys want to talk about the Routier case? Or the case of Betty Broderick? Either one. Ask away. Well, I'll go ahead and talk. First off, Darlie Routier. I think it's interesting how they're saying that the Innocence Project, a lot of channel creators have been saying that the Innocence Project has taken on her case. I'm not sure that they've taken on her case, because the article that I read about that, it sounds more like they have asked for copies of everything that they're looking at her case. I'm not sure they've taken it on. And I know it sounds like a minor detail, but I think it's a minor detail that matters. So I guess it wouldn't be minor. Right, we're being told that they took on the case, right? But I don't think they did. She still has her same appellate lawyer, Stephen Cooper. So I don't get that. And also, do you guys remember about 3 or 4 years ago, there was an ABC, I think it was, miniseries, a 4-part miniseries on the case of Darlie Routier? One of the producers of that docudrama, I call it a docudrama because I don't call those documentaries myself. That's my opinion. One of the producers of that docudrama was involved with the Innocence Project. So it seems to me if the Innocence Project was going to take on her case, and I'm quoting the other channel creators, then they would have jumped on it right then and there, right? But instead, it's a few years later, and from what it sounds like, a couple of the Innocence Project people who are from the national office, which is another thing that I'm wondering about. Why isn't the Innocence Project in Texas jumping in? I don't know. Just asking. Yes, Smile. That ABC miniseries was so pro Darlie. Miss CD says, I've never understood the sock in the alley. It had blood on it, but no blood anywhere around or outside the house. And it also had Darlie's skin cell DNA on the inside of it, didn't it? Smile says, did you think it's strange how the dining room table was set up for 6 people and was still immaculately set? I'd said immaculately wrong. It's just an observation. What are you talking about? The Routier case? You mean like there was some big struggle, some intruder? A couple of serious murders taking place, a woman attacked while she slept and stayed asleep, the light sleeper that she was. And the only thing that got knocked over was a wine glass from the wine rack, which, according to the investigators, would have not fallen simply by being, rustled around. They believe that was part of the staging of the scene, especially because the glass landed on top of Darlie's bloody footprints. And they were evidently able to determine that those bloody footprints that were underneath the broken glass from the wine glass that supposedly fell from the wine rack, that she wasn't running, she was walking. And if I was sitting on that jury, that little detail would matter to me. Bella has a best friend who lives in Lubbock, Texas. Miss CD says, I've never understood Oh, wait, I already read that. I think the sock was put out there, and I think there was a second knife that was put down the drain because the sock was found, I believe, near the storm drain. I think they thought that they got the sock and the knife both in the storm drain. Yes, one of the boys' blood. Miss CD says, I lean more towards she's guilty but cannot understand the sock. I don't lean more towards she's guilty. I believe 1,000% that she's guilty of sin. You guys know her friend, right? They called her Barbara, I think, on the stand. She has some other name. It's BAS as in Sam, IA. She called me and we had quite the conversations. And I took notes and I asked her rapid fire questions and she didn't miss a beat. I believe her 100%. And she told me that Darlie told her that yes, she did it. And that she didn't understand what happened, but that yes, she did it. Yes, the flower pot as well. Good point. Ooh, the 911 call is very amazing, especially when you spent the number of years I spent answering 911. At first, I thought the 911 call was like, wow, she really does seem distraught, right? But partway through it, she's like, ma'am, oh, my babies are dying. Right? And then she goes, somebody came in here and did this. What's his name? Darren. Did she say Darren? Somebody came in here and did this, Darren. And then she flipped right back to her other tone. Oh, hold on, hold on, hold on. Ma'am, when are they going to get here? Even though they were already there, right? Yes, Bella. And from what I understand, it was her husband who brought that to her attention while they were standing on the steps while they were loading little Damon into the ambulance. The diet pills messed her up. I think what messed her up was that she had contact with a man who she claimed had sexually abused her many times when she was a child, beginning when she was age 8 years old. On Mother's Day that year, and remember the murders happened on June 6th, right? On Mother's Day that year, she handed her children over to a man who she claims started sexually abusing her when she was 8 years old. She testified to that in court under oath. Well, if you were sexually abused by a stepfather since you were 8 years old, would you hand your children over to him on Mother's Day so that you could go off and have fun? I'm thinking the answer would be no, but I think she was being encouraged, to forgive and move on and whatever. And I think it messed her up really bad. And I think it was shortly after that or right around that time that she stayed in bed all day crying and writing in her journal something to the effect of, Dear Devin, Damon, and Drake, I think, or she may have said baby Drake, but I can't remember. Something to the effect of, please forgive me for what I'm about to do. Okay? And then she called Darren at work and said, come home now. And he did. And he said later that they talked about her feelings that she was having. And he actually said this, that he became angry with her for how she was feeling. And they never discussed it again. Well, there's husband of the year right there, right? I think Darlie had the perfect storm brewing in her life. I think she was concerned that her husband was leaving her. She was taking diet pills when she didn't even need to lose weight. She might have had an extra 10 pounds on her. Big flippin' deal. She had a baby, right? That extra 10 pounds would have come off over time. Hadn't she just stopped nursing? Hadn't she just started her 28-day cycles? You know what I'm saying? That's something else her husband said later. That after that day when she called him and he came home from work early, he said that her period started a couple of days later and then she was normal again. And that was evidently her first time since before the baby was born. So I think she had hormones just flying. I think that she had a husband who she thought was leaving her. I think that they were talking about divorce because Darlie said in her written police statement that the two of them had words between them right before the murders, right before he went up to bed without her. I think she was afraid of her mother-in-law getting custody of the children. And she said so to her friend who called me. Because the friend who called me said she tried her best to have Darlie get help because she could tell she wasn't acting normal. She even begged Darlie's husband to get help for Darlie. And Darlie's response was that she realized she needed help, but that she was afraid it wouldn't look good down the road in a custody battle, and she didn't want her mother-in-law to get the kids. Smile says postpartum depression. I don't think it was postpartum depression. I think it was that she had unresolved rage toward her abuser. And I think that when she was falling asleep on the sofa on the main floor with the boys sleeping on the floor right by her, and her husband was up in the master bedroom where the baby was in his crib, I think that she started to drift off to sleep, and I think she started to have a nightmare that she was being attacked again. And I think that when she was stabbing, that it was actually her abuser in her mind who she was attacking. I think she was at the counter when she came to, and she looked over and saw what she had done, and I think that's when she screamed. And then I think she went into damage control. And I think they arrested the right person and convicted the right person, and I think she's right where she belongs. I do not believe that she should be executed. Because in my opinion, I think society failed Darlie Routier. I think society failed Devin and Damon Routier. I don't think she should be executed. I think she should be telling the truth about what happened and helping society learn about the issues that she was facing at the time. They had huge financial issues going on. Huge financial issues. Well, it's not so much that she spent more than he made. That's actually not the case. In fact, I think he may have been as much of a spender as she was. He was making a lot of money at first because when he left his employer, we're told that he also took a bunch of the clients with him. And he was losing those clients. And so his big income was suddenly not so big anymore. So it wasn't so much that she spent more than he made. It was more like he wasn't making what he had been making, and they were both spending a lot. Samara says, I think she was overwhelmed by the responsibility to look after 3 kids. I don't think she looked after the 3 kids, quite frankly. I think she was dealing with being an adult survivor of childhood sexual abuse, and I don't think she had the tools at all to deal with it. I think those feelings of rage were surfacing. I think she was miserable. And I think that she was drifting off to sleep, and I think she had a nightmare. I do. That's been my theory for many years, that she was having some sort of a PTSD traumatic nightmare, and that in her dream or nightmare, that she was actually killing her abuser. Hey, Star Mama. Sorry, I should have emailed you. Smile says, Darlie will never admit it. People have argued over whether she was offered a plea deal if she confessed prior to trial. Have you any knowledge of this? Let me think. I don't think she was offered a plea deal before trial. I think what you're referring to and what they've been arguing about for quite a few years is at some point post-conviction, I think there was some talk about if she were to admit whatever, that they would try to change it to a life sentence, because there was something weird at the time. Remember, she got convicted of capital murder, and at the time, I think the sentencing possibilities were different than they are now in Texas. I don't think that life in prison at that time, I'm not sure, there was some sort of discrepancy about what was available at the time for the jurors or for the court to sentence her with. So I think what you're talking about, what I've seen people arguing about, was something post-conviction, and at that point, there was an all-out refusal to ever admit anything. But think about this. One of her first appeals, it may have even been her first appeal, the claim was that her husband was shopping around for someone to break into the house to stage some sort of a insurance scam. And if you look at that ABC 4-part miniseries, Darren actually references that appeal in one of his interviews. And the way he makes it sound, he signed something at the direction of the lawyer, basically telling him, if you want to help your wife, then you'll sign this. But my impression of what Darren was saying is that he was signing something that wasn't true because he wanted to help his wife. I mean, he was one devoted husband, let me tell you. So if you think about it, well, I'll touch on that real quick. I think the reason he was so devoted is I think he felt guilty, because I think they did have words, that's what Darlie said, before he went up to bed. And I think he probably said something mean to her. And I think he felt guilty for what happened. But this whole thing about an insurance scam, okay, if you think about it, according to the appeal, Darren had said something about the insurance scam he was supposedly, right, going to pull off. He said something to Darlie's stepfather, and Darlie got mad. They were over at her mother's house. Darlie got mad, and she stormed out because she didn't want him talking about trying to set up some insurance scam, okay? And then a short time later, 2 children are murdered by an intruder. Well, if you are somebody who watched Darlie get mad and storm out because her husband's talking about an insurance scam, and then all of a sudden there are a couple of kids murdered, don't you think you'd be telling the police about that? I'm just saying, I think that'd be something you'd be telling the police right away. I don't think it would take 2 or 3 years before you came forward with that information, right? Yes, Bella, she threw the glass after. The broken glass was on top of her bloody footprints. Maybe we could have gotten the prints. You know this case really well. That's one of her famous lines. Was he having an affair with her sister? Good question, Star Mama. At the time, I think the sister was only 15 years old. And the sister had been staying at Darlie's house for a couple of weeks at the time of the murders. She was working evidently at Darren's shop. She had already moved out of her mother's house, and she was evidently staying with her boyfriend at his apartment, but for the last couple of weeks before the murders, she was staying at Darlie's house. And then, like I said, riding to work with Darlie's husband and working at the shop. Well, the day before the murders, Darlie got a phone call. And it was from the auto mechanic, because remember, the Jag was always in the shop, right? Which is why Darren had Darlie's car, and Darlie was trapped at home in the Texas heat without a car. And remember, she was known as Shop Till She Drops Darlie. Darlie liked to go shopping. And, I mean, really, she was trapped at home with 3 kids and no car. Come on. This was before central air was in every house, too. So we don't even know if they had central air, and I don't think they did. So she's trapped in the Texas heat with 3 kids and a housekeeper who doesn't speak very good English at all. And she gets a phone call from the car mechanic saying, I need to speak with Darren. And she says, well, Darren isn't here. He's at work. And the car mechanic said, no, he isn't. I tried the shop and he isn't there. And she said, what? And so she called the shop and she talked to the lady named Barbara, who is really named B-A-S as in Sam I-A. And Barbara told her that Darren and her kid sister had left the shop around lunchtime and they hadn't returned. And Darlie got mad. And according to the housekeeper, who is Barbara's mother, according to the housekeeper, when Darlie found out that Darren and her kid sister had left the shop that day, she became furious. And she started stomping her feet around the house, and she started slamming cupboard doors, and she started, get this, sharpening her kitchen knives. She was pissed. Well, that night after work, guess what? Barbara left work, and Darren and the kid sister still hadn't come back to the shop. So she locked everything up and she headed over to Darlie's house to pick up her mother, who had been hired to do the laundry for Darlie, because evidently Darlie was way behind in her laundry. And as soon as she got there to pick up her mother, she noticed that Darren wasn't home. And she thought, uh-oh, where the hell is he? She goes inside the house and her mother wanted to get out of there immediately. She's like, get me out of here. Get me out of here. Now. Get me out of here. But Barbara was worried because Darren wasn't home yet, and she knew that Darlie was so angry. So she was worried. So she said to her mother that they were going to hang out just a little bit and hopefully Darren would be there soon. She hung out for a half an hour. She grabbed a beer out of the fridge. She sat down. She tried to pretty much help Darlie be calm. And here's something really sad. Little Damon, when he saw her pull in the driveway, that's when he stopped riding his bike. He had been riding his bicycle, 5 years old. He had been riding his bicycle all afternoon in the neighborhood by himself until he saw Barbara pull in the driveway at the end of the day. And that's when he came home. And he ran right up to her. And she picked him right up and gave him a hug. And he whispered in her ear, asking her, begging her to please take him home with her that night. And Barbara asked Darlie if Damon could come home with her that night. And Darlie said no. Right around the same time, Devin, who had been spending the afternoon at his friend's house, called, begging to be able to stay overnight at his friend's house. And Darlie said no. Both children wanted to stay somewhere else that night. both of them. So the hubby and the sis still aren't home. But Barbara had a family of her own to tend to. And remember, her mother wanted to get the hell out of there as fast as she could because she had been trapped there with Darlie's temper that afternoon. So she said, okay, Mom, let's go. And they got in the car and they started driving away. And her mother said to her, somebody is going to get hurt. And they were both very worried about the children at that point. As we're driving out of the neighborhood, in drives Darren with Darlie's sister, right? And they both had big smiles on their faces, and they both waved big. They were happy. They waved at Barbara and her mother as they passed each other while Darren and the kid sister were on their way to the house, finally, at least a half an hour later than they would have normally shown up. And Barbara thought to herself, when she noticed their big smiles and their big waves, she thought to herself, they have no clue what they're walking into right now. Do I think that they were having an affair? I don't know. I think the question that would stand out would be, did Darlie think that they were having an affair? And I think the answer to that would probably be yes, based on the fact that the eyewitness, Barbara's mother, saw how angry Darlie had become when she called the shop and learned from Barbara that Darren and her kid sister had taken off at lunchtime and hadn't returned to the shop. I think they probably argued all evening. And keep in mind, the sister had been staying there for a couple of weeks, right? Well, all of a sudden that evening, she was staying there every night. That evening, all of a sudden around 9 or 9:30 or 10 o'clock, she said that she wanted to leave. Well, that kind of tells me that there was probably a lot of fighting going on. She wanted to go to her boyfriend's apartment, she said, because he wasn't answering the phone and she didn't want him to worry about her, to which I've always thought, if he wasn't answering his phone, then I think he probably wasn't worrying about her. So Darren jumped to his feet to give the kid sister a ride over to her boyfriend's apartment. And I think when Darren got back, I think literally all hell broke loose. Are you guys talking booze? I see vodka. Miss CD says, I think she planned it. Ooh, really? I think it was spousal revenge filicide to a certain degree, but I also think it was fueled by her unresolved rage from being sexually abused as a child. It could be that she was just, what do you say, giggly and flirty. It could be. Smile's heart is palpitating. You must be an avid true crimer. That was the same sister who brought the silly string to the cemetery. And, Darlie was known for that silly string party, right? Star Mama, I agree, but I don't know if that was able to be done at the time. I think it's changed since then, but there's something, and I don't know what, and I'm too lazy right now to dig into what I call the library in our discussion group to find out. But I think there was some reason at the time why they couldn't give her life, and I think it had to do with the capital murder conviction, but I think it's been changed now. In my opinion, what should happen is she should tell everything she knows. And if she cooperates and tells everything she knows, and makes herself available really to be studied and interviewed by the professionals so that we can learn to help other young moms, right? Then I think she should get a life sentence. And let's face it, it's been 20 plus years and she's still on death row. Do you really think they're ever going to execute her? I don't. What I think is really unfair is that if she was a man, I think she would have been executed about 20 years ago. But I'm against the death penalty anyway for everybody. So yes, known as the Don't Mess with Texas. You got it. Her boyfriend's name is Darren? Okay, that's kind of creepy. I thought her boyfriend's name was David. I'm not sure, but I think she had a boyfriend for a while named David. I guess I've been too busy getting, you know, what was the word? Obsessed, being obsessed with the case of Christopher Watts. I'm kidding. I'm not obsessed with this case. You can tell just by the Darlie Routier discussion how much more interesting the Darlie Routier case is than the case of Christopher Watts. Same with the Betty Broderick case. That one is so much more interesting. Oh, one thing I wanted to say. In all of those years, there were only 3 profiles. Well, I think 2 people, with one of them using 2 profiles. One person who claimed to be a close friend of the family called me and was drunk and was saying nasty things, and it never happened again. I called her out on it publicly, and I say publicly, but in the discussion group, it never happened again, because in that case, I think the family actually stood up and said, don't you ever do that again, or don't you ever say that you're speaking on our behalf. It never happened again. And I respect that. And you know what? Maybe she just got drunk and made the wrong call, right? But the other one, who I think was using 2 profiles, she posted some nasty stuff. Basically a threat. And of course, when she got called out, she ended up getting kicked out of quite a few groups, because there were probably about 10 of us, I think, that were pretty solid groups going on at the time. And when they saw those threats, everybody stood up to her and kicked her out, which is how it should be, I think. Well, years later, with the case of Christopher Watts, guess what? That person surfaced and is very involved with the scumbag attackers. In fact, she's a scumbag attacker herself. Isn't that interesting? So it makes you wonder, was she just a scumbag attacker back then? Or was she just a bad person who hooked up with the scumbag attackers now? Exactly, Miss CD. My babies are dying. They're dead. My babies are dying. They're dead. Parents will not readily admit that their child is dying or dead. Their child can be blue, and they will tell you to keep trying. Their child can be cold and blue, or cold and, okay? And they refuse to believe that the child is dead. They dial 911 and they say, hurry, hurry quick, hurry fast. They're giving the children CPR. They're doing whatever they can do. They're asking for any help at all about what they can do before the ambulance arrives. not Darlie. My babies are dying. They're dead. And then at one point she asked, oh, is he dead? Or something like that, that I thought, oh my gosh. Which is what I started to say about that 911 call. If you just listen to it kind of loosely, right? Yeah, she sounds distraught. But if you pay attention, uh-uh. Mothers do not say, my babies are dying, they're dead. And mothers don't hang out in the kitchen on a cordless phone while their babies are laying on the floor in the family room within sight, but nowhere near the babies while their babies are dying. The first police officer to arrive at the scene, I think he got there within 3 minutes of the call. Officer Waddell, told Darlie to get off the phone and to help the children. And she stayed on the phone for another 3 minutes. And it was actually longer than 3 minutes. The 911 call that you see posted all over the internet is not the full 911 call. They want you to think it was 5 minutes and 40 some seconds. It's actually 6 minutes, I think, and 18 seconds, I believe is how long it was. Kind of like the Watts case. Over time, things change. That officer told her very clearly to get off the phone, and she didn't. And the first EMT, the one who was helping little Damon, who saw little Damon take his last breath, described the look in Damon's eyes. It was as if he was afraid of his mother. I think he said he was trying to scooch further away. He had a look of terror in his eyes toward Darlie. Yes, Smile. She claims that one of them actually stood by her on the sofa, too, and was trying to wake her up. Was she in shock at what she had done? I think it's possible. My opinion is that when she stood at the counter with the knife in her hand and she saw the blood on her nightgown, t-shirt, whatever it was, and she turned the lights on and saw or was able to see Devin and Damon, I think she all of a sudden realized what she had done. And I think at that point it would make sense that she would have been in shock. And that's when she screamed. Sammy says, I thought Darlie was guilty after seeing the silly string video, but later changed my mind to she didn't do it. Well, I didn't think she was guilty after seeing the silly string video. I thought she was loony, but not guilty because of just that video. Brooks says, my opinion is that it was a murder-suicide attempt that failed, that she chickened out at the last minute, because the doctors testified that her wounds did have hesitation marks and they were self-inflicted. But yeah, she's guilty. She's guilty of sin. And it's really too bad that there are so many people trying to push the narrative that she's not guilty instead of trying to push the issues that she was facing at the time of the tragedy. Because once again, if we're going to put blinders on and pretend something away, then we're not helping other children be safe in their own homes. You guys want to talk about the comparisons between the case of Christopher Watts and the case of Darlie Routier? Sammy says, I didn't think guilty just because of the silly string, but it tipped the scales for me. Smile says her neck wounds were not deep. It was just by chance that she didn't hit the carotid artery. Tamara says, I agree on the silly string. That was not what made her guilty. Smile is giving us a thumbs up. So, okay, we have a young couple. That's what we're being told in both cases, right? Well, let me say this to begin with, as we compare the two cases. I believe we have been told the truth with the case of Darlie Routier. I believe the prosecutors told the truth. I believe law enforcement told the truth, okay? I believe even the mainstream media was truthful in their reporting. Okay, so I just want to put that out there. Both cases were treated as if, oh, it's just a young couple living beyond their means, just starting out, blah, blah, blah. In the case of Darlie Routier, they were a young couple. They lived in a neighborhood surrounded by people who were a lot older than they were. They were kids. I think Darlie was 27 at the time of the murders. She was a young mom. She was a young mom with 3 children, and she actually was a stay-at-home mom. She wasn't staying at home on social media while the kids were at daycare. Darlie was a hands-on, stay-at-home mom who probably actually did do more than 90% of the other women out there. She took care of the 3 kids all day, right? And I'm saying typically. I think right before the tragedy, things changed. I think they had a lot of other people around because I don't think it was just Barbara who noticed that Darlie was struggling. But for the most part, she was a stay-at-home mom. She actually did take care of Darren's books for the company. And she did shop. She invested a lot of her time and energy in shopping, shop till she drops Darlie. And she liked to take vacations. She was a busy, busy woman. So it's interesting that with the case of Christopher Watts, we're told all of these things, which in the case of Darlie Routier were actually true, right? It's almost like that's the template for the tragedies, is to say what a devoted, whatever, right? I think both couples were living beyond their means. Both couples had credit card debt that was climbing. I think Darlie had maxed out her American Express. Well, I think from what I've been told, Christopher Watts, I've had a stack of credit cards going strong. And there's the difference. We should say this is really comparing and contrasting the two cases, because in Darlie's case, she had an American Express. And if you're familiar with the American Express, that tells you something. Darlie was not a serial credit abuser if she used an American Express. However, at the time of the tragedies, her American Express was maxed out. So they do have that in common. They both had their credit cards maxed out. The prosecutor also found something in the trash that made it look like they were late on 1 or 2 house payments. But according to Darlie, she had caught that payment up right away, and it was already paid by the time they were talking about it. In the case of Christopher Watts, we know that Christopher Watts' wife failed to make at least 3 house payments. In the case of Christopher Watts, in my opinion, their income was whatever he made at the oil company. In the case of Darlie Routier, Darren actually made some good money. And he didn't make it all on his own. Darlie was working right alongside him many times. And Darlie was a big part of how he even was able to go off on his own. She used to help him in the evenings back when they had their first home. She worked hard for him to be able to build his business. So it's a huge contrast, in my opinion, between the two couples. The house was gorgeous in an area, of course, of brand new homes. But as with the case of Christopher Watts, we're told how Christopher Watts' wife bought that first house. Well, guess what? When you buy a house with, what was it, 5% down or less than 5% down, and you sell it for less in your hand than you brought to the table, sorry, it's not exactly the best investment you could have made. And I've thought that with the case of Darlie Routier. I think they should have stayed in their first house for a while longer. But no, they had to have the brand new fancy house. And then Darren had to have the boat. Now, it wasn't brand new and it wasn't all that fancy, but he had to have the boat. And just like the Jag, the boat needed repairs. So they had huge financial stress. I think they had huge marital stress. And I think that Darlie was suffering with some mental health issues. So I'll say the same thing for the case of Christopher Watts. They had huge financial debt and stress. They had huge marital issues because, in my opinion, that marriage was over long before the tragedy occurred. And I think that Christopher Watts' wife was suffering from some pretty severe mental health issues. I think there was a divorce looming in both cases, and I think that both women knew the divorce was looming. Both women also had little vacations planned for themselves. They loved to travel. Evidently, no matter how much money they had in the bank. Darlie had, I think, a 2-week vacation planned shortly after the tragedy occurred, where she and Darren and the kids were all heading back to Pennsylvania to her hometown, which I think was Altoona. I don't know if I'm saying that right. And then she had another trip planned for herself and one of her girlfriends to head to Cancun without the hubs and kids. Interesting. Tamara is stating facts. Let's see. Tamara says, as someone who knows a lot about MLMs, it was the MLM that took a lot of SW's time and money. I think the MLM took a lot of Christopher Watts' money. Her comment continues, even if something with slim chance one makes money, they still spend a ton of money on products. Well, then they aren't making any money. 99.9% of the people in the United States who take part in a product-based MLM fail to even see a penny of profit. I'm tired. Tamara's from Grand Rapids. Hey, Tamara. I was in Grand Rapids yesterday. I don't think Amway sued. I would say research a little bit. There was a case in Texas, I think, where they got sued. There have been a few cases through the years. Interesting. Tamara and I both know from being longtime residents of West Michigan how the MLMs work. Because when you live in Grand Rapids, Michigan, then you know at least one person well who has suffered financially, at least. Yes, Star Mama. It was that legging company that got sued. I think it was the Attorney General of whatever state out west. Tamara's now in Elkhart, Indiana. Nice. But in West Michigan, there are a lot of us who know dang well how those MLMs work because we've seen it firsthand. We've watched family members or friends who want to become a double diamond direct and they invite you over and they say, well, I don't really want to tell you the details right now, but it's something I think you'll really be interested in. And then the pat response is, let me guess, it's an Amway presentation, to which they will say, no, 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 because, they changed their name now. So they can say no to that question, honestly. I don't know anybody who has been successful with any MLM. Yes, Tamara, I agree. And the wife of the head honcho now, the son of one of the original head honchos, is very connected. She was the education secretary. Smile says, comparison between both mothers had increasingly difficult relationships with their children. Interesting. I think Darlie was a great mom until she wasn't. I think for the most part she was until right before the tragedy. Yes, Star Mama, I read that. The legging company was telling their, what do you want to call them, cult members or whatever, that they needed to get a husband. What did they call them? I think they said the name of the legging company, husband, in order that you had to have a husband who was going to support your habit there. Yes. Tamara says she's a lifelong Republican, so she knows more than she should. I was really surprised when she was named the education secretary because she was, I thought, pretty much anti-Trump at the time, wasn't she? Like, isn't she the one who refused to stand up when he walked onto the platform at the Republican convention? And then when he got elected, he made her the education secretary. And I'm like, huh? Wait a minute. I don't think she stood up when you walked onto the platform. Star Mama is telling it like she sees it. She says, I will never believe SW was a great mom, wife, employee, or friend. Her videos tell another story. That's okay. I'm always being taken off topic. Just throw me back on topic. Where you lead, I will follow. I'm checking my email, you guys, and I have one from somebody who I don't know who she is. Oh, interesting. Okay, I see another email too. I was wondering, not about that, but I was wondering just who. Ooh, thank you for that email, you know who. Interesting. But the other email that I'm looking at, it says, am I blocked on your channels? If so, what did I do? I just want to say, I have no clue who you are. I have no clue if you're blocked. Therefore, I have absolutely no clue what you did if you are blocked. Rustic Life says, Star Mama. I don't know if Rustic Life is going in caps because they're yelling or if they just like caps. Now, myself, I like caps. So I'm not going to assume that Rustic Life is yelling simply because there's caps. Let's see. Star Mama, Shannon, or wait, I'm sorry, Shanann. Ooh, Rustic Life, you might want to spell her name right. Just saying. Shanann Watts was a great mom. Or wait, great mom. So Rustic Life is from the UK, I think. Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. So I think those caps are yelling because of the series of exclamation points. But yeah, you want to check that out, Rustic Life, and get that spelling right of her first name, because that's usually a clue for us that you're probably not really discussing the case as much as you are just like part of the pack. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, the mom gives it away. Exactly, Tamara. Exactly. The whole idea that it was a leased vehicle in Christopher Watt's name. Oh, she earned her car. Yeah, okay. Well, in Brooks, if you look at her Facebook group or her Facebook profile, she didn't even have any likes. She was liking her own posts. Here's a response to Rustic Life's comment. A great mom? And then, you having a laugh? Good point, Tamara. And I think it's a really sad lifestyle to be promoting, quite frankly. If leaving your husband and kids on the weekend to go hang out at some hotel with people you barely know is a lifestyle that anybody wants, I guess raise your hand. I don't know. Kay Cooper's our serious debater here. Rustic Life. How was she a great mom? Here's another comment, not in caps, but with a series of exclamation points. An awful mother. Star Mama says, Rustic. My opinion based on facts. AKA fact-based opinions. Yes, I do, Elena. Yes, I need a nap. I need an old woman nap. Here's one I didn't see. Brooke said, Cindy Watt's book is on Reddit. She talks about how the Lexus was a leased car in CW's name. That was one of the big secrets. Tamara says they brag about how much time they spend on their MLM with their kids screaming in the background. Star Mama says lots of love. Kay Cooper says, whew, SW was an abusive mother in every way. Financial abuse, child abuse, emotional and mental abuse toward her kids and husband, scamming people, etc. That's not, quote, a good mom. Rustic Life says, oop, in caps again, but no exclamation points. So let's see here. Just watch her videos and the way she interacted with her children. That's exactly what we have done, Rustic Life. That's exactly what we have done. And we have noticed the look of fear, sadness, and confusion in poor little Bella Watt's eyes. We've also watched the video where Christopher Watt's wife said that she gave the girls lots of Tylenol with a big smile on her face. Please answer, what dose is lots of Tylenol? Opinions based on SW's own Facebook posts. Second that, Kay Cooper. Star Mama says, hey, Cooper. The answer, Smile, is because people are here needing content for their channels. Yes, Summer Breeze, I agree. Even CW looked afraid of her. Mandy says that Rustic Life must not be familiar with emotional abuse or medical abuse or physical abuse or financial abuse or psychological abuse or gaslighting, which is psychological abuse, or scapegoating, which is psychological abuse and emotional abuse and mental abuse, or even physical abuse when you think about the time that she physically assaulted Christopher Watts, according to his mother, and I believe his mother, and physically removed him from the house and locked the door. If he would have been the female, of course, he would have had everybody's sympathy. Correct? Tamara says, I watch so many MLMs make Instagram videos, Facebook videos, crying and begging for mom. Well, they talk about how great their job is. The fact they say job is disgusting. What they should be saying, if they want to be honest, is, hi, I'm a dipshit. And I just paid a lot of money that my husband can't afford for me to spend to sign up for this terrific opportunity for me to sit on my ass all week while he goes off to work and the kids are in daycare. Yes, Star Mama. Do you need to have your hair cut? Do you need another haircut? 6:30 p.m.? Yeah. She's a great mom. On a serious note, Rustic Life, if you watch those videos and you truly believe, although, I don't know, I'm not even going to go there because you didn't even know how to spell her name. So, nah. Not taking your bait today. Thunder before lightning. Lots equals continuous. I think it means like an overdose. That's the dose most people give their children when they are sick. Also, lots of Tylenol when they are sick would suggest much more than usual, and usual would be nearly none. Yes, Straight has the best videos. I think when she said she gave the girls lots of Tylenol, ooh, oh, sorry. I think she gave them a hefty dose of Tylenol. And with that smile on her face, I think she was looking forward to her me time. Did you notice in that video that same video, how she was like, do you want me to put you down, to Bella? And then Bella kind of did her little whine to be held. I don't know. So sad. Um, yeah, I should. You know what? Because I still have other stuff to take care of. Thank you, Susie. Miss Mess is going to either get some other stuff done and then take a nap, or take a nap and then get some other stuff done. And Star Mama's going to take a nap too. So let's go ahead and talk later. And we will discuss whatever cases you want to discuss. I thought that was fun discussing the Routier case. We can do the Broderick case now. We can do whatever case you want. Because if I haven't heard of it, I'm a pretty quick learner. Yeah, I had a busy day yesterday and I have a busy day tomorrow. So if I get everything done and get a nice nap in, I might hop on again tonight. But if I don't hop on again tonight, I'll hop on, I would say Thursday or Friday for sure. Maybe tomorrow, but probably not. So everybody have a great rest of the week. We'll talk soon. And if you guys are hooked on that case of the missing 5-year-old, I would seriously step back and think. Like, I definitely wouldn't be commenting on it in any of the chats. I wouldn't be getting too invested in believing a lot of what you're hearing. Just my opinion. And I sure as heck wouldn't. I mean, the thing I'm trying to say is this. It's an open case. True crimers do not discuss open cases. There are two different groups of people. Two different groups of people when it comes to true crime cases. Those like the armchair detective, who are calling themselves investigators or trying to like dig in and whatever and investigate, right? And there are those of us who simply discuss the case, and we're more toward the behaviors and the actions leading up to the tragedies and analyzing what the heck happened and why. Where the armchair detective types, they're more the types of wanting to know every detail of what the heck happened. We're more the types, I think, where we like to analyze cases and look at kind of the bigger issues and to learn from these cases and to promote awareness so that other children in the future will hopefully be safer. Oh, wow. I just saw your thing that there's a scumbag attacker alert. Let's go ahead and see what she says. Rustic Life in caps says, I hope Sandy Rusek is coming after you with legal proceedings for slandering a dead person. Rustic Life, there's no such thing as slandering a dead person. Did you know that? That's true. Nobody on this channel is slandering anybody. So you can take your virtue signaling off to wherever it is you came from. And really, you should learn how to spell Christopher Watt's wife's name if you expect anybody to take anything that you say seriously. Just saying. Okay, so everybody have a great rest of the week. Tamara's either pondering on it or laughing. I can't tell. Yes, Star Mama. Scumbag attackers, please don't come back. Kay Cooper says, yeah, you don't want to get into an ongoing investigation because it can do more harm than good. And the police don't need our help in those cases. Promise. Exactly. It's fine, I think, to be interested, kind of keep your eye on it, but I wouldn't jump into discussing it because it is an open case. I think that anybody who is out there posting videos and interviewing people, and I think they're being careless and reckless. And I'm sorry, when people say that they're doing it because they care so much, who do they care about? I don't get it. I actually think that there are a couple of channels who are doing a really good job of exposing the other channels because it doesn't make sense. I don't think it makes sense at all. It's an open case. Nobody on social media should be saying some of the things that have been said about that case. Nobody. And just to clarify again, the two different types of quote unquote true crimers, because I know the other type like to call themselves true crimers. They're not true crimers. They're armchair detectives. That's what they're known as, armchair detectives. We're the true crimers, where we discuss closed cases. The armchair detectives, that's a whole different breed, okay? And even the armchair detectives typically are not discussing open cases. Typically, they're not. Until the case of Christopher Watts came along, and all of a sudden everyone hopped on social media and forgot to use the words alleged or accused. So on that note, Miss Mence is going to take a nap and get some stuff done, and we'll talk again very soon. And Rustic Life, I hope you learn to spell. It will help you go further in life. Lots of love to you all. See you soon, Miss CD. Susie says, night all, with love.